Welcome into another edition of the Lions 24/7 podcast. It is a busy week across the Big Ten here in Penn State, of course. It's Big Ten Media Days. We'll get to our guys, Mark Brennan and Daniel Gallen, a little bit later in the week, both of them out in Indianapolis, covering the Nittany Lions, covering everything happening out there at Lucas Oil Stadium. Follow Lions247.com for the latest on all of that. Penn State down a commitment this week. We'll discuss that. We'll also talk about the Lash Bash event, which is coming up this weekend. On that attendance guest list, you'll find Javen Williams, and you'll find him right here on the Lions 24/7 podcast as we bring him on board, the top-rated prospect in the state of Pennsylvania for the 2023 recruiting class, a longtime member of this Nittany Lions unit that has grown, is approaching 20 total commitments. Javen, welcome onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, you and I had a phone call late last week, and we had a long chat about your decision to enroll early. And let's start there. I know you're gearing up for your senior season. You want to go out and prove yourself all over again, finish strong at the high school level. But you're now under 6 months away from coming here and being a member of this football program at Penn State. What is the kind of the top reasoning why you wanted to make that move early?
Well, like me and Coach Franklin and Coach Shawwan, like we put a lot of thought into the decision. And for me, I just really want to get like a big head start. And it seems like for linemen compared to skill guys, it takes a little bit more time to really like get to your top kind of, speed as far as the college level football. So I want to get like the biggest head start I could get and the biggest advantages compared to the other schools in the Big Ten.
And you are one of three offensive linemen who plan to make that move in January. I wrote about that on Monday. You, Alex Birchmeyer, Anthony Donka, all planning to make that move come January. What do you think that's, I guess, reflects about Penn State's offensive line recruiting and kind of what you guys want to impact for the future?
Like we all text in like the group chat and stuff, and we make sure that me, Alex, and Anthony, like we try to stay as close as possible because we are a unit. So I feel like it was like a decision that like everyone made on their own, but it was kind of cool to see it all come together because I had no idea they were doing that also, and I kind of had it in the back of my head. But I'm looking forward to getting in the weight room with them and on the field as soon as possible as well.
A big group coming for Penn State. There's going to be a bunch of early enrollees. We'll keep tracking that. But in the short term, you're going to be back on campus on Saturday and be part of that Lash Bash. It's going to be, a big opportunity for some of the underclassmen targets, but certainly for the commits to get back together with the coaching staff and with each other. What do you think is the biggest opportunity for commits like you getting back to campus here this week?
It's really just team bonding. I'm pretty sure it's like a barbecue and a bunch of games, so I'm like really looking forward to spending time with a bunch of the coaches and it's like the official visit. A bunch of the recruits were there with their families, so I'm looking forward to meeting their families again and just really like embracing the culture and the family environment for Penn State.
Now, when we look ahead, part of that early enrollment decision was the fact that you are going to have to, step aside from the track and field circuit next spring. Where you and I discussed this, and we'll talk about it right now. A dominant track and field season for you as a junior. Ended up being a two-time state champion, discus, shot put. In the PIAA Class 2A championships, state record in that shot put, nearing 66 feet 8 inches. You're content, though, to walk away. Those are your numbers. Was that any part of kind of the struggle in this decision, wanting to maybe take another look at what you could do next spring?
100%. Me and my high school coaches and my offensive line coach and my throws coach, we like talked about it a bunch. And my line coach, he threw also, so like he understands kind of like what that means as far as like if I were to compete for one more year. And like that was a big deal as far as my last year competing with track and field and also being able to like spend time like in high school with my classmates and stuff. So like those were the two things I had to weigh out. But for me, like I think the advantages of enrolling early definitely outweighed them out.
And, you're going to make that move. And we talked about this. The position discussion is something that maybe takes some people by surprise because they see your profile on 24/7 Sports. We've got you as a top 5 offensive tackle. You look across the industry, you're in that high 4-star, some 5-star range. A lot of them looking at you as a tackle. But you're going to be focused predominantly on guard as a senior. Can you tell us how your role with your high school squad is going to change from junior to senior year?
Yeah. My junior year, I was a strong side tackle, so I was doing a lot of down blocks and I pulled a bunch. But during like the mid season, I want to say like my coaches, they kind of see my versatility and how I was able to learn the playbook and move really well. So they moved me into guard a bunch and just really gave me a couple sets and a couple reps at practice. And then during the game, I got a little bit more comfortable. And like by the time the end of the season came, like I didn't even notice, but I learned all positions on the field. So like my coaches, they kind of just like they kind of just like threw me in there. But I really appreciate everything they did, and we talked about it a bunch and kind of being like the percentages like last year. I think I don't know the exact percentage, but like it was like almost like 50-50 as far as like uh offensive tackles, reps and guard reps. And like this year I'm like predominantly a guard and I'll be pulling a lot. So I'm really looking forward to that this year.
Is your comfort level a little different inside versus being on the perimeter? Have you found that as you've gained more experience at guard?
Um, I'd say yeah. I'm a big guy that like I love to communicate and like even dummy calls. Like I'll just be yelling like jibber jabber. So like I just love getting in there and I have two guys next to me that I can trust. So like I just really feel a big unit thing. Like especially at guard rather than tackle. I'm on the outside and then kind of like solo almost.
Well, we saw you a couple times on campus and working with Coach Troutwine and you and Alex and Anthony at different courses of June. Now, a lot of guard work with Coach Troutwine, and as of right now, we'll see how the class takes shape. We'll talk about some of those targets in a second. But understanding from coming off the conversation with you is, as of right now, probably going to stick at guard if things go according to plan, making that move from high school to college.
Right. Me and Coach Troutwine, the first day, like I really talked to him, and the day he offered me, that was the first thing I asked him, like, where do you see me playing on like this field? And he just told me he wants to work me inside out. Wherever I'm really like comfortable. That's a big thing for him is like the personal guy, like where am I going to feel comfortable at, where I'm going to be best at, and he thinks like I'll be best at guard just because. I have a little bit of advantage is like I'm pretty good at bending, but my arms are like pretty long. So I could bounce outside because of that, but he thinks predominantly I'll be better and I'll have more success at offensive guard.
What have you picked up from those sessions going, in person with Troutwine, working alongside a guy like Alex Birchmeyer? What are some things you've added to your toolbox, some things you've picked up going toward your final prep campaign?
Definitely pass blocking. The beginning of this summer, like I wasn't too like confident in myself as far as pass blocking, but after working with Coach Troutwine all summer and just really talking to him and working on myself with my teammates and stuff like that, I think I'm a little bit more confident in my pass blocking, of course, and definitely like the style that he coaches. They teach a different like hand placement, coil replacement kind of thing. So learning that, I kind of have a little bit of a step like going into college on what I'm looking forward to. So I'm looking forward to the playbook also. We got to learn and see that a little bit on our official visit. So I'm just kind of taking everything in that he's teaching us, and I've learned a lot all summer.
It sounds like you and Troutwine have a good line of communication. How would you kind of describe him as a coach, as a recruiter, and now in year 3 on the Penn State staff?
Amazing. We have me and my high school offensive line coach, we have a real close bond, like a really close bond. So I don't want to almost deteriorate that, like, going into college with a new coach, but they get along pretty well. So like that kind of add a little bit of trust factor into that, if my main guy trusts my next level coach. But Coach Sharman, he talks to me like every single week, I'd say, close to daily, of course, depending on when the recruiting is heavy and when he's on the road and stuff like that. But I really appreciate how he takes time out of his day just to check up on me. Just like yesterday, he called me while I was playing on a video game, and we're just talking, and we're talking about, the video game that I'm playing. So I say that he's younger. I think he's like 30 something, 35 or something like that. So it's like, I feel like when he's talking to me, it's almost like an uncle or like an older brother rather than like Coach Franklin, when obviously he's older and, he has more experience.
Well, I know Coach Troutwine and Coach Franklin want to fill out more of this offensive line class. I know you do as well. We've mentioned the 3 guys who are on board. A couple big names at the tackle position: Stanton Ramil, Evan Link have been talked about quite a bit on our site in recent weeks and months. Are those 2 guys that you are particularly active with at the moment?
Yeah. Evan Link and Stan Ramil, those guys, I'm pretty sure they were on campus for like official visits. So
Yep.
Coach Sean he told us that those were guys that he really wanted to for us to check out, and me and a bunch of the commits we're getting on them. I know Evan, he's a little bit of a quieter guy, but we're trying to get to as much guys as we can. We're also talking to Naquil and Samson Okanolu. That's a real big one that we're trying to get to join our class. That'd be a really big get.
Nikhil down in Baltimore now, formerly of Northeast High School in Philadelphia, picked up a Penn State offer, got to campus a little while ago. Some of those names out there. So you're talking about tackles there. Is the plan then Penn State's able to add a tackle or two? That kind of locks up the guard plan for you, and vice versa. If they struggle to bring some tackles on board, does that more so open the possibility that you'll be on the perimeter to begin your career?
Exactly. That's actually a talk that me and Coach Troutwine actually had as far as well, it really, again, comfortability, like wherever I'm at and how I feel, wherever I'm successful at. But it'd be a lot easier for me to just, hop in and it'd make the line fit a little bit better together as far as having a real NFL, 6'7", 320-pound tackle.
I know that you're confident that you're going to come away with some more talent in this offensive line class, and that's not going to be the case. But I want to go back real quick to your track and field success, because there is a correlation. Brian Doan, who covers recruiting for us at the national level at 24/7 Sports, referenced your success as a reason for your rise in our recent top 24/7. Can you say, tangibly, how what you do in track and field with the discus, with the shot put, impacts what you're able to do when you get in a 3-point stance and attack the opponent on the football field?
Yeah. Well, those, the shot put, I feel like they add different things because you're not moving as quickly with the shot put in your neck as far as with the discus. So with the shot put, that's a lot more explosiveness, really getting my hands on you and that grip strength kind of deal. Discus is I'm a lot quicker through the circle. And I think that's finesse. And they both have to do a lot with footwork. So I think both of those and definitely balance. It's really hard to save a throw usually when you're going full speed in a real competition. So that's definitely as far as physically, I feel definitely those are things that go together in the track and field world.
Now, you are the top-rated prospect in Pennsylvania by our standards. When I look at the top 10 in composite, 6 of those top 10 in Pennsylvania committed to play football at Penn State. You recently added a running back, and I know running backs, offensive linemen, they go together, they count on each other. London Montgomery, what did you think about the pickup there, and how involved you were in the dialogue with him before he made his decision?
He was another guy I feel that was a little bit quieter as far as communicating. But something that's really cool is I faced him in the state quarterfinals in the PIAA state championship, and we beat his team. So I was able to really work and not work with him, but see his film. And I knew he was one of the better running backs in the state. And I knew that if Penn State was able to offer him, I knew even before he got offered, I was that's a good running back in the state, and he's probably going to get a Penn State offer because he's one of the best in PA State and PA. So when he committed, the connection all the recruits had on the official visit was amazing, and I feel we kind of we didn't determine it, but we kind of were expecting that after what happened, we had a great time. We spent a bunch of time together bonding. And I feel the official visit that we had back in June, it really set the lead and set the ball moving as far as getting all those commits that were there to commit also.
Well, he came on board this month. So did Tamir Robinson out of the Pittsburgh area. And so you're seeing this swell of in-state prospects stay home and play for Penn State. As somebody who committed early on in the cycle and has been recruiting your fellow peers in the state of Pennsylvania, how proud are you about the way this class in-state has taken shape?
Extremely. We actually have a little group chat for the PA guys, and that's one thing we really want to embrace. We're the PA guys. We're from the home Keystone State, and we want to embrace that and take that going into Penn State. And they also do a great job at doing that. Also, I feel that's a big thing for myself. Being the Eastern PA guy, I want to make sure that I make my community proud. And I feel the class has been doing a pretty good job as far as the in-state and out-of-state guys.
What does it mean to you to be on top of that list for your home state among all these rising high school seniors? A lot of talented players that are going to play Power 5 football. Someday they'll play in the NFL. And right now you're on top of that list. It's not just 24/7 Sports. This is the consensus opinion. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot. Growing up, that was always like, the dream, be the best, guy in Penn State. For me, when I was getting like, my recruiting process, my goal was just to be the best offensive, lineman in Pennsylvania and to be the overall athlete. Like that's just, for me, that's different just because I was always told, the linemen don't get all the glory. You kind of just, pick up for the skill guys and stuff like that. So like, I feel like it's like a big deal as far as for me and my family, just because, I'm a lineman and I try to show a lot of athletic abilities and capabilities. I know there's a lot of guys in PA that are above and beyond, even the guys that are committed. So I'm really, I appreciate it a whole bunch from like all the recruiting sources, and hopefully we just keep on skyrocketing it up.
Something else that came up during our discussion late last week was the in-state factor when it comes to NIL, because you're not just moving across the country and showing up to a campus as some big name. You're getting in the car, driving a couple hours, and then you're going to be home pretty frequently. How is that going to play out for you from an in-state perspective, from the quote unquote local top recruit? How can that really benefit you moving forward in this new age of college football where there is financial opportunity?
I think it could benefit a whole lot. I know Nick Singleton. He's gotten a couple of really nice deals, and I know, he's kind of like the hometown hero. He had a whole bunch of crazy accolades and stuff like that. So I know that like that plays a whole big part into like being a guy from Eastern PA. This is your home, and like you said, being 2 hours away, like I'll be home a lot. So I feel like the mom and pop shops that showed me love. Growing up, I'm definitely gonna try to start something up with that. And there's a lot of like PA is really big. Like you have Eastern PA where it's like Philly and like Scranton, Reading, of course. And then you have Western PA with like Pittsburgh and like stuff like that. So I feel like everyone, there's Pitt, but everyone loves Penn State. So I'm really looking forward to all the deals and all the money that's going to go into this, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for me.
And when you're on an official visit weekend at Penn State, how much of the conversation is about NIL? How much of the presentation, how much of the plan for your next 4 or 5 years of your life involve NIL opportunities, and how much do they lay that out while you're on campus with your family?
NIL is like not new. It's kind of new. So like, a lot of coaches and people are like really still learning about it. But I say that Coach Franklin, like he did a really good job of like presenting that. I know Coach Kabbalah, he kind of took over that as far as like on the staff with the NIL. So I know like if I have any questions, anything to do with that, I know that he'll be able to answer it. And they did a really good job of like presenting that and the pros and cons and how much money we'd be able to make.
Well, my last question for you here, Javen, and thanks again for the time coming onto the podcast. It's been a wild July. We're not done with it yet, but your class has added some big time pieces. You've also lost a couple really important pieces. As you come out of this and everybody starts to get ready for their preseason camps, how do you feel about this class, and where do you think it goes in the next few months once you get to signing day?
I feel like amazing about this class ever since I joined it. I feel like we don't necessarily try to, but we kind of compare ourselves to the class of 2022, and how successful they were. So of course we want to land in the top 5 or top 10 would be. I feel like top 10 is expected, but top 5 would be like a real big deal for us, and we're all grinding and we're doing a real good job recruiting. And I know we're on everyone that we can get our hands on, and we're trying to bring like the best talent, but also guys that we know that we could bond with, and that's really like the point of this, really to see who the guys that we're going to be spending the next 4 to 5 years with. And I feel confident that the guys in this class right now, I'm going to be real comfortable and real happy to call those guys my teammates and my friends on the field also.
Javen Williams, one of the marquee members of a recruiting class that has 18 commits on board as of this Tuesday and number 5 in the nation. Javen, thanks a lot. Good luck with upcoming preseason practice. But before then, enjoy Lash Bash this weekend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
All right. Take care. Good stuff from Javen. Really, if you missed it, last week had a lot of things to say about his early enrollment. You heard some of that repeated a bit, but story up on Lions247.com on Friday. A little bit more about his upcoming transition to Penn State come January. We're going to bring, without further ado, our recruiting analyst at Lions 24/7. That is Tyler Calvaruso. And Tyler, tough act to follow in there. And Javen Williams, who I know a lot of people are excited about and should be further excited about after hearing from him. But we got a lot to get to, and we'll start with something I referenced there at the end of the conversation with Javen. Another exit from the recruiting class earlier this month. It was quarterback Marcus Stokes flipping to the Florida Gators. That was a shocker. That one really came out of nowhere, and we had very little time to digest it. This one, more of a slow trickle to get to this point. Yazeed Haynes, 6 weeks after committing to Penn State, now decommitting from Penn State. But as I just said, not exactly the slap in the face or the shock moment that Marcus Stokes presented to us a few weeks ago.
No, the writing was kind of on the wall with Haynes when he went to Temple camp and camped in front of the Georgia coaching staff. He picked up that offer shortly after the camp. He made a visit down to Georgia a few days later. And I mean, this, like you said, slow trickle is pretty much the way you described this. Once that offer came in and once Haynes made the decision to go work out for the Georgia coaching staff while committed to Penn State, it was pretty obvious where this one was trending. And, hey, look, game is the game. It's just one of those things where Penn State, another loss to Georgia, Haynes just had his sights set elsewhere at the end of the day.
Yeah, we'll see if Yazeed Haynes officially ends up in that Bulldogs class, but that's where the tea leaves are certainly pointing, and that's where the crystal ball is pointing to at this stage as well. And Haynes, I mean, you were on campus, and we were both there watching him, blow out the 40-yard dash. Got a big reaction from James Franklin and the staff. He's a guy that there was a lot of excitement about him being a versatile component as an athlete in this recruiting staff. Is he a defensive back? Can he be polished enough at wide receiver? Now he's totally out of the equation. So which side of the ball, I think I know your answer here. Does this maybe hurt more or impact more or light a fire under you more if you're Penn State and you got to get a piece?
Definitely wide receiver, and it just comes down to a couple of reasons there. We've touched on it that Penn State was leaving the door open for Haynes to pick his position, but at the end of the day, this is more of an impact on wide receiver recruiting moving forward, just because Penn State already has so much depth defensive back-wise in its 2023 class. So even if Haynes decided that he wanted to play DB, it would still be a wide receiver move. Just, they're looking to add speed. Guys like Carmelo Taylor, Micah Mays, Edwin Joseph, all of them are all in play. We'll talk more about them soon. But, yeah, this is going to impact Penn State's wide receiver recruiting more than defensive back recruiting moving forward. You're going to start to see kind of the board take shape in the coming week or two, and we'll see where Penn State goes to the position. There's a lot of work to be done with Izani Shakir being the only commit in the class right now.
Yeah, Shakir on board. And by the way, his new head coach, Bill Belton, promoted there at Winslow Township late last week. We had Belton on the podcast to talk about Shakir, his top target. But, yeah, that remains the only receiver group. They brought in a nice freshman class last class with some speed, with some blue-chip talent. Mitch Tinsley's a one-year rental of sorts out of the transfer portal. So Carmelo Taylor is a name that you brought up, and it's one that we've brought up here on the podcast plenty of times here in the past couple months. He made his official visit to Penn State in June. The size is not going to blow you away. You'll look at the young man, you wonder if he's going to be a Power 5 fit, but then you turn on the film and you see those verified speed numbers and you think, okay, now you get it. Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Penn State involved there. But this seems like he's having a hard time getting to a commitment date. It also, when he put up a photo the other day announcing some of his struggles with the decision, he was rocking a Penn State Penn State bracelet on his wrist. So people are trying to look for clues here. And I want to remind everyone, this is a very new recruitment when compared to pretty much everybody on the Penn State target board.
Yeah, I mean, me and Brian kind of touched on it on last week's podcast that there's a lot going on here. I mean, there's so many moving parts. Like you said, it was a late blooming recruitment. So those are always kind of the interesting variety. Just, when a kid blows up like that and the process kind of hits them all at once, it's a lot to take in and they have a lot to sort through. And that's what Carmelo Taylor is going through right now. Last week it seemed like Virginia Tech was in a good spot. Now it seems like South Carolina is in a good spot. Penn State is still very much in play. So, look, I mean, no matter what happens when Taylor does commit, which seems like it's going to be on the final day of July with the way things are slated right now, I think we'll be talking about Carmelo Taylor going into the fall. I don't think this is a recruitment where he commits and the page gets turned and that's that. I think this is a name we'll be discussing throughout the cycle. This is probably just the start of where things are going. It'll be interesting to see if Taylor makes it up to Last Bash on Saturday. That's something that I've yet to be able to confirm. So we'll see if he winds up making the trip. That'll obviously add a very interesting element to it because if he were to make the trip, that would give Penn State essentially the last crack at him before he announces his commitment, the last chance to make an impression. We all know the kind of impact that could have. And another return trip to Taylor to campus, maybe that's enough to move the needle. But we'll see. I mean, really, the wait and see approach is probably the best way to play this because I don't think this is coming to a conclusion anytime soon.
Yeah. Mentioned before, just being a few yards away from him on campus back in June when I was covering a 7-on-7 camp and he was there for his official visit. Got a little bit of the KJ Hamler vibes from the size and what about his speed, but also the personality. big personality for a smaller statured guy. But KJ Hamler was well on the radar by the time he got around to this point in his career. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, one thing that we've been trying to track here, and I know you've done a great job of it, is whether Micah Mays is going to show up for Lash Bash. You talked about Carmelo Taylor. Mays is a guy, NC State jockeying to get him on campus here for that last peak before preseason camp. And so is Penn State. Out of the Benjamin School in Florida, Palm Beach area, we know that the Nittany Lions have done really solid work down in the Sunshine State this year. J1 Sider, Taylor Stubblefield are involved here. It seems to me that if he doesn't get on a plane and end up at Penn State, it may be a bit of a back to the drawing board moment as we kind of reshuffle what Penn State wants to do at receiver.
Yeah, and the good news for Penn State in that regard is I think he's leaning towards making the trip. That's what the intel seems to indicate. And let me just say, there's been
it's Tuesday at 1:30 p.m.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll put that out there right now. We got a ways to go for an event like this.
Exactly, man. We're in a few days from now, he could be on a plane to NC State, and that's that. So this is a developing situation. There's yet to be any sort of confirmation of where Mays will visit this weekend. So it's coming down to Penn State and NC State in that regard with a visit. I think he's leaning toward making the Penn State visit, which would present the Penn State coaching staff with a pretty big opportunity. Wake Forest has had such a good relationship with Mays for a really long time. And with him closing in on an August 6th commitment, with relationships looming large, Penn State's late to the game. Wake Forest has been there essentially since day one. So Penn State is kind of fighting an uphill battle. But Mays has been on record saying how important of an offer this was and how he was looking for that kind of big-time opportunity. Granted, it didn't come from the SEC like he was wishing. Being a Florida kid, that's a pretty understandable wish. But he likes Penn State. He understands the program's history. He understands what the opportunity to play in the Big Ten will mean to him. He's been very vocal about getting that kind of an opportunity. So if he does make it to campus, I think the staff is going to have a chance to shoot itself up his list in a sense. And, they're going to get a look at him too. It goes both ways, so it'll be interesting to see if he makes it to campus. That's something that we'll be monitoring throughout the week. Like you said, I mean, we could get done here and I can find out where he's visiting. It's a fluid situation right now.
Yeah, and it always is with Lash Bash, and like you said, this is really important week. Everyone wants to focus on those official visits of June, but this is kind of that last chance to make that impression before everyone goes back to their respective high school practice fields and starts to focus on themselves and their team, and maybe shift gears away from recruiting for just a little bit as much as possible. Edwin Joseph is another name that you referenced. He's out of Chaminade Madonna Prep in South Florida. Another guy that to monitor, receiver for Penn State, but one that's going to be confirmed as a Lash Bash visitor out of Tennessee is Justin Brown. SEC interest, of course, in play here. But this is one that he will be in town, as far as we understand, at Tuesday at 1:30. So that's a little bit further along than some of these other guys.
Yeah, right now the plan is for him to make it to campus on Saturday. Staff will get a look at him. It's expected, he'll showcase some stuff for the staff. They'll make their evaluation, and that evaluation, I assume, will pretty much determine where Penn State goes with Brown from this point on. And, just watching Brown State, he's a pretty interesting prospect. He's got some pretty good traits that the staff could work with, should they choose to. And if Penn State pushes, I think they'd be very much in play. They'd be right there with Mississippi State, where right now it seems like he's leaning. And Penn State isn't necessarily late to the game here. Like, they're late in the sense that they're getting a look at him at the end of the July. But they've been involved. There's been contact for a while. So how Brown fares for the staff will ultimately determine if he's a factor moving forward.
Yeah, and 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns last year as a junior, and we've seen this play out. We've seen this play out in late June. I think this Lash Bash weekend in particular, where Penn State gets some guys to campus who have offers, and maybe it's their first time on campus, and it's really your first chance to get a feel for each other. You're looking and you're assessing from an athletic standpoint, but you're also doing that from a behavioral standpoint, I think, as well. And just trying to get a fit for the culture and for personality. It's a lot to try to pack in, especially when you're juggling all this stuff, but these coaches don't miss much during these weekends, and the support staff, everybody's watching stuff, measuring stuff. And there's another name I should throw in there, a junior college prospect that we confirmed is going to be on campus, Anthony Robinson. I chatted with him. He's out of Butler Community College in Kansas, one of the premier community college football programs that you'll find across the country in the last few decades. And he was at Fort Scott last season, originally out of Baltimore. This is a 6'3" cornerback, but Penn State's going to want to know, is that 6'3" on 24/7 Sports site, or is that 6'3" in front of our faces here in Happy Valley? So that's just kind of an example. And Robinson's, I think, kind of one of those, depending on how it goes while he's on campus for 24 or 48 hours this upcoming weekend, could go a long way for what it means in Penn State's interest going into this upcoming season. We've seen guys verify offers and end up committing to Penn State on weekends like this. We've seen guys come down and probably intending to verify their offers and ultimately being left out of classes from weekends like this. So there is a lot to study through, kind of just beyond the list of names that people go through. There are a lot of gray areas when it comes to some of these guys, particularly with 2023 prospects, because that clock is getting louder and louder as it ticks down to signing day.
Yeah, and those are all really great points. And I think it kind of gets lost in the shuffle that some people think, weekends like this where Penn State has Lash Bash and, they have all these top tier guys up. They think it's just, everyone comes up, they have a good time, they get a nice barbecue in. No, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here with kids working out and kids trying to earn their place in a class or earn the legitimacy of an offer. And I think that kind of gets lost with some people. They just think it's a chill weekend where the commits try to sell the program to the prospects that make it up. There's a lot of other stuff going on. It's a big weekend for a lot of kids, especially with it being right before the dead period. This is the last chance for a lot of kids to really get on Penn State's radar before the season starts.
Late last week, I know that Tyler posted a list of confirmed visitors for the Lash Bash. There's some big names on there. They extend beyond the 2023 class. A lot of 2024 players, 5-star out of the state of Pennsylvania, Quentin Martin among those headliners, Tyseer Denmark, who, in my opinion, was probably the best playmaker, period, that I saw in the 7-on-7 circuit here in June at Penn State. He's going to be coming back to campus, and that's just the tip of the iceberg as we work our way through some of the more long-term recruitments. But sticking with 2023 and not necessarily Lash Bash guys, and I know you'll continue to keep tabs on that. Everyone check it out, lions247.com. Our VIP subscribers have learned every name, every step of the way as they get confirmed. You're not going to see them until we get confirmation, but once they get confirmed, they're up there. 2 defensive names to bring up on 2023 class, and maybe you can help me out here because they've been murky at times and maybe still are. Kavion Keys at linebacker out of Virginia, and then defensive lineman Jalen Thompson out of Detroit.
Yeah, starting with Keys, yesterday I spent some time working the phones, doing a little bit of research on him, just getting a better feel for where he's at ahead of his late August decision. And we've documented time and time again on this podcast, on the site, on the board, and through Q&As that this is a Penn State, North Carolina battle. And there have been plenty of points where I've said North Carolina, North Carolina, North Carolina. I don't think that's really the case anymore. I think as June went on, Penn State's chances got better and better, and that kind of came to a head when Keys made the official visit. That official visit wound up being arguably Penn State's most impactful official visit of June, just in the way it moved the needle. See, saying that might be a little bit of a stretch is based on the way things went with Tamir Robinson and Tony Ross, how those visits essentially locked down commitments. But Keys was just as impactful because right now Penn State has the lead for him, albeit it might be a slight one. He still has a lot to figure out throughout the next month. But I think Penn State has the momentum in his recruitment right now. And a lot of that could be attributed to what transpired during his official visit. He was really sold on the culture, the coaching staff, his fit in the defense. Just Penn State really pushed all the right buttons. The one thing I would say with Keys that needs to be monitored as the end of the dead period approach, or the beginning of the dead period approaches at the end of the month, is if he makes it to Virginia. Virginia's trying to get in with him late. We'll see if he makes that trip. I still think even if he does make that trip, it's going to come down to Penn State and North Carolina. Obviously, Virginia in-state schools, there's going to be some level of interest there if he does make the trip. But I like where Penn State is at with him right now after that official visit. And Thompson, yeah, his visit plans are kind of, I guess, up in the air is the best way to put it, because he was at Ohio State yesterday, first trip right off the bat to begin the week. He made that trip. He really enjoyed it, had a good time in Columbus. And now it looks like he's going to stay in the Big Ten with his visit, but it might not be Penn State. It might actually be Michigan State on the 30th, which was kind of unexpected just because Thompson had an official visit scheduled with Michigan State during June, and that visit didn't take place because of Michigan State. That was their decision. So to kind of see him circle back with Michigan State possibly on the 30th it's a pretty interesting development, I would say. It was kind of unexpected on all sides. So we'll see if Thompson makes it up to Lash Bash. If he does, obviously that would be good news for Penn State. He wants to take all of his official visits. Penn State's going to get one in the fall if he sticks with that plan. But it would be big if they could get him back on campus before the end of the month.
And, of course, for a while there, we were wondering if Kavion Keys would ever make it to campus. Yeah. He finally did. We saw the impact there. And whether it's been weather-related or travel-related or just generally his itinerary changing, it feels like Jalen Thompson, the 4-star defensive lineman out of Cass Tech, is one that you simply have to check in the moment you're writing about it. You can't check in yesterday and write about it today, right? You've got to kind of monitor this one day by day with Thompson, and the reporting out of the 24/7 Sports Network elsewhere in the Big Ten territory certainly kind of adds to that.
Yeah, because when we first published the Lash Bash list late last week, it was in the middle of last week. Thompson was leaning towards making that visit, and now it's more up in the air. So, yeah, I mean, you just got to keep checking in and seeing what his plans are. It's one of those ever-developing things, kind of like Carmelo Taylor in a sense. But, yeah, we'll see if he makes it. It's there's a chance that he does. There's a chance that he doesn't. Either way, I think we're going to see him back on campus in the fall.
We kind of buried the lead. We're going to see you back on campus later this week, and first time since early June. We're looking forward to that. It not only is the Lash Bash take place this weekend, but it's the final prospect camp of Penn State's summer schedule. It's actually the first one of July and the last one of July. And it's always a really solid one. The numbers aren't as massive. There's quite frankly just more of a quantity versus quality situation in some of the earlier camps. And this one's going to be kind of flipped where you get a lot of quality, less quantity. So it should make for a good coverage on Friday. We plan to be out there, of course, Saturday into Sunday. We'll see what comes out of Lash Bash. If commitments surface, if guys start to lean one way or the other, we'll be reporting all that at Lions247.com with Tyler leading the charge. Of course, Brian Doan will stop in. I think Alan True will probably jump in for this as well, considering some of the regional guys that may be on campus. But Tyler, any kind of final thoughts as you kind of piece together this Lash Bash and monitor the Penn State recruiting trail a few days ahead of Lash Bash? I don't think we'll have you back on here on the podcast before we get on the field Friday.
It's really just, the 2023 guys that may or may not make it. That'll be obviously a pretty big development that you got to stay on Lions 20. You got to stay with us for that because it could change by the day, man. So I'm excited to get back up. There's going to be a lot of top tier talent coming to campus both Friday and Saturday. Friday, I'm really excited about just getting to see that camp. I've heard it's a high level camp. It's been a good camp for Penn State in the past in terms of, evaluating kids, getting them offered and, getting some of these guys on board. So I'm excited to make that trip. And obviously, my first Lash Bash, I'm really looking forward to that. I might have to go to the Creamery too, because I don't need Dawn to roast. I don't need him to roast me the next time he comes on again.
Brian Doan already took you to task for going 0 for 1 on the Creamery. You can't go 0 for 2. And you know what I can't have happen? Because you just you stirred my memory a little bit. I remember when Will Levis came to campus the night before the Lash Bash, threw in front of Joe Moorhead, throwing the ball to guys like Pat Fryermuth. He ends up coming away with an offer. He ends up being the quarterback on board, replacing a quarterback who left the class. Is that a dynamic that people should be following? I know if those who have been following you on the message board probably already know what's going on there, but quarterback, is that a position in play this weekend to monitor as Penn State looks to replace Marcus Stokes ultimately in this class?
As far as I'm concerned, Friday, yeah, most definitely. I think we're going to see a very intriguing quarterback on campus and throwing some passes for the staff. So if you've been on the board, you have a little bit of insight into that. I can't really get into too much more detail out of respect for the prospect, and his wishes. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see Friday.
Well, I respect your respect for the process and for the prospect. We appreciate every time you come on the show. We'll have a lot more to talk about early next week coming out of Lash Bash.
Oh, yeah.
In the meantime, folks can follow our coverage at Lions247.com. See you in person real soon, Tyler.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, good stuff. Again, Lash Bash Saturday, camp preceding that on Friday. Glue it to Lions247.com this weekend. It's going to be a fun place to be. Big opportunity for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Big thanks to Javen Williams for joining us here earlier on this episode of the podcast. Long conversation with him. A lot to look forward to as his career begins at Penn State this upcoming winter. For now, going to step aside. I am Tyler Donahue. We'll be back a little bit later in the week. Daniel Gallen, Mark Brennan, currently covering Penn State out at Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis, will join us with their full reports from that event. We'll talk to you real soon right here on the Lions 24/7 podcast.